Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Today we are going to understand a very important issue in international relations, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that commonly called as NPT, and why Iran is now considering withdrawing it. To begin with this, let's first understand the context. Recently, the Iran parliament has started discussing the possibility of withdrawing from the NPT, and this discussion is happening in the backdrop of ongoing tension in West Asia, especially after reported strike on Iran nuclear facility by Israel and the United States. Now, naturally, this raises an important question. What exactly is NPT and why it's so important globally? If you try to understand it in a simple term, what we can say that the NPT is an international treaty that designated to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy, and ultimately achieve the nuclear disarmament. It was opened for signature in 1968 and came to force in 1970, that making it one of the most important global agreements on nuclear security. Today, almost the entire world is part of this treaty. In fact, as of now, 191 countries are members of NPT, that including the major powers like United States, Russia, United Kingdom, France and China. Now, to understand how this treaty works, we need to look at its core structure. That means the NPT is built on three main pillars. The first main pillar or the first pillar is non-proliferation, which means under the first pillar, the countries that already have a nuclear weapon, especially those that tested them before 1st January 1967, they agree not to transfer the nuclear weapon or the technology to other countries. At the same time, those countries that do not have a nuclear weapon, they agree not to develop or acquire them. Second pillar, that is related to the disarmament, which means here all countries, especially nuclear weapon states, they commit to gradually reducing and eventually eliminate their nuclear arsenals, so that the treaty is not just about the stopping new country from getting nuclear weapon, but also about to reducing the existing weapons. The third pillar, that is regarding the peaceful use of nuclear energy. That treaty recognizes that all countries have the right to use the nuclear energy for the peaceful purpose, such as electricity production, medicines and scientific research, as long as they follow the rules of non-proliferation. To ensure that the countries follow this rule, there is also a verification mechanism. This is handled by an International Atomic Energy Agency, which conducts the inspection to make sure that the nuclear material are not being diverted for weapons. Now, an important feature of this treaty is that it also allows the countries to leave it. Under Article 10 of NPT, a country can withdraw by giving 3 months of notice if it believes that it is their national interests are under threats. At this point, it is also important to understand our position, because this is often asked in many exams. India is not a signatory of NPT, and India has constantly argued that this treaty is a discriminatory because it creates a division between nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states. In a simple term, what we can say that NPT, which allow a few countries to keep the nuclear weapon while restricting others. Along with India, there are countries like Pakistan, Israel and South Sudan. They have not signed this treaty, while North Korea had joined earlier, but they withdrew from NPT in 2003. Now that we clearly understand what NPT is, we can move to the main issue. Why is Iran considering to withdraw from this treaty? Iran's decision is not happening in isolation. What we can say right now, it is directly linked to the recent geopolitical developments. Iran has been facing increasing military pressure, especially after the attacks on nuclear facility by Israel and the United States. From Iran's perspective, this creates a serious contradiction. The Iran argued that its members of NPT has the right to develop the nuclear energy for the peaceful purpose. However, despite being part of the treaty, despite the member of the NPT, its nuclear facility are being targeted. So the Iran Foreign Minister spokesperson Ismail Baghouei has clearly stated that Iran remain committed to the treaty as long as its member, but at the same time, Iran is questioning the usefulness of this agreement. Their core argument from Iran is this: what is the benefit of being part of the treaty if your rights are not protected and you are still being attacked? In other words, what we can say that Iran feels that balance of the NPT is not being working in its favor. The treaty asks the country to follow rules, but in return, it should also guarantee their right, especially right to peaceful nuclear development and security from the external attacks. This is why Iran is now considering withdrawing as a strategic opinion. It is not just a legal step, but also a political signal, a way of showing dissatisfaction with the current global nuclear order. However, this move has a serious implication. If the Iran exits from NPT, it could increase a global fear about the nuclear proliferation and further destabilize the already tense region, and it may also trigger the reaction from other countries that leading to a broader security crisis. So when we analyze this issue from the exam perspective, we must understand the both sides, that the structure and the purpose of the NPT and the geopolitical reality that are pursuing the countries like Iran to reconsider their commitments. To conclude this part, the NPT remains one of the most important pillars of nuclear governance. But at the same time, its effectiveness depends on whether all countries feel that it is fair, balanced, and capable of protecting their interests. If that balance is questioned, as we are seeing in the Iran case, the entire framework of nuclear non-proliferation can come under stress. Now, to build a strong conceptual foundation, let's take one step back and ask more basic question. What exactly are nuclear weapons and why are they considered such a serious global concern? To understand this properly, imagine a weapon that is not just designated to win a battle, but has the power to erase an entire city within seconds. This is the scale we are talking about when we discuss the nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons are fundamentally different from the conventional weapon. While normal bombs rely on chemical energy, the nuclear weapons release energy from the nucleus of atoms, and this energy is not just a powerful, it is millions of times more destructive. This happens through the process like nuclear fission where atoms splits, and nuclear fusion where atoms combine to release even greater energy. Because of this, the impact of nuclear explosion is not limited to a single form of damage, it comes in different layers. First, there is a massive blast wave that can flatten the building, destroy the infrastructure, and wipe out everything with a large radius almost instantly. Then comes to the intense heat wave, so powerful that it can burn human bodies and the material within the seconds. But even beyond this visible destruction, there is much more dangerous and long-lasting effect that called the radiation. The radiation is invisible, but its impact is devastating. It appears through air, water, and soil, and once it enters the human body, it can cause severe health problems like cancer, organ damage, and genetic mutation. And that makes even more alarming is that this effect can continue across the generation, affecting not just those exposed, but their children as well. To truly grasp this, we need to connect it with the history. In 1945, what we all know that during Second World War, there is atomic bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Within moments, entire cities were destroyed and lakh of people lost their life. But even after the explosion, the thousands continued to suffer for years due to radiation related illness. This was the moment when the world realized something very important. The nuclear weapons are not just a weapon of war, they are the weapon that can threaten the human civilization itself. Now, when we bring this understanding into the today context, the concern become even more serious. Today, the several countries possess a nuclear weapon and the technology have advanced significantly. This means that even a limited nuclear conflict could have a global consequence. The scientists, they warned about the possibility of a nuclear winter where smoke and dust from the explosion could block the sunlight that reduce the global temperature, disturb the agriculture and led to the widespread food shortage. So the issue is no longer just about one country attacking another. It is about the survival of humanity, the stability of the environment and the future of the global security. And this exactly why the international community felt to need to create a framework like Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The idea was simple but the crucial to prevent the spread of nuclear weapon, reducing the existing stockpile and ensure that nuclear technology is used only for the peaceful purpose. So now when you connect everything together, the larger picture becomes clear. The NPT is not just a treaty on paper, it is an attempt to control one of the most dangerous technology ever created by a humanity. And when a countries like Iran, they start questioning or reconsidering its position within its framework, it is not just a regional issue, it is become a matter of global concern. If you are approached in this way, you will not only answer the prelims question correctly, but also you can write high quality mains answer with the clarity and depth. Thank you all. Keep revising with the clarity and I will see you in the next session.